I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and I've been married to my high school sweetheart, Emily, for nearly 8 years. Our relationship had its ups and downs like any other, but I believed we were rock solid. We had this beautiful home in a cozy neighborhood, a golden retriever named Max, and even a couple of kids. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But truthfully, I felt something was off for a while now. It started with small things. Emily had been coming home late from work more often than usual, throwing around phrases like busy season and gotta hit those deadlines. I would try to be supportive, even offering to help with dinner while she worked late, but the late nights turned into weekends spent away. I found myself questioning her absences more often, but every time I raised a concern, she brushed it off with a dismissive wave and some excuse that felt rehearsed. Then came the phone. I noticed she was glued to it more than ever. Emily would smile at texts, sometimes even giggle. I'd look over her shoulder and she'd quickly lock the screen, claiming it was just some work group chat. Trusting husband that I was, I let it slide. But deep down, that nagging feeling began to grow. One Friday evening, I returned early from work, hopping to surprise her with dinner. I pulled into the driveway, my heart light with the anticipation of seeing her smile. But as I approached the front door, I noticed the blinds in the living room were half drawn. Odd. Hadn't she mentioned needing to run some errands? I crept closer and stopped dead in my tracks when I heard laughter, her laughter. I peered through the gap in the blinds, and what I saw shattered my world. Emily was sprawled across the living room couch, her head thrown back in a fit of giggles, and there was a man sitting next to her. I didn't recognize him. He looked younger, cocky, with a smirk on his face that made my stomach churn. I stood frozen, my heart racing as I watched them share fleeting touches, a moment that felt too intimate, too personal to be innocent. I felt an uproar of emotions: anger, betrayal, disbelief. I was not prepared for this. I stumbled back and retreated to my car, the dull ache in my chest intensifying. I needed to confront her, but I couldn't just barge in there. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, waiting for her cheating ass to let her friend leave. Eventually, I saw him exit the house and drive away. I took a deep breath, my fists clenched, and decided it was time to confront her. I marched up to the door, adrenaline pumping through my veins. When I opened it, Emily looked up, her face dropping when she saw the look on mine. "Jake, you're home early," she exclaimed, trying to mask her surprise. "Yeah, I am. Who was that guy?" I spat, my voice a low growl. Her face blanched, and I could see the wheels in her head turning. "What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about," she stuttered, her gaze flicking nervously to the side. "Don't lie to me, Em. I saw everything. You think I wouldn't notice?" I shot back, rage bubbling up inside me. She opened her mouth to protest, but all that came out was a pathetic excuse. "You made me do it. You're always working late, and you don't pay attention to me anymore." Her words felt like daggers. I wanted to scream, to yell about how I had been there for her, supporting her dreams, working my ass off for us. But I was also losing my grip on my emotions. "Really? You're blaming me for your betrayal? That's rich," I replied, my voice steady but laced with hurt. I could feel my heart shattering further with every word exchanged. The confrontation went on, her excuses flowing like a river, each one more outrageous than the last. It felt like a twisted game of verbal ping-pong, but as ridiculous as it all was, her words cut deeper than I expected. I realized I had to gather my thoughts to process the pain, the betrayal, and anger that was swirling around my head. What was I going to do now? How could I move forward from this? I knew I had to find a way to deal with what had happened, but I felt lost in a dark cloud of betrayal. The confrontation ended with Emily storming off to the bedroom, leaving me standing in disbelief. I felt like I was in a nightmare that would end. I could hear her muffled sobs from behind the closed door, but I had no sympathy left to give her. I was angry and heartbroken, a volatile mix that left me feeling hollow inside. I spent the night on the couch, Max curled up at my feet, oblivious to the turmoil in his owner's heart. I couldn't sleep, not when my mind replayed the scenes from earlier, her laughter, the way she leaned into that man, the way she tried to brush me off like I was nothing. I felt the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest, suffocating me. By morning, I had resolved that I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. I had to take control of the situation. As dawn broke, painting the sky a pale orange, I made a mental list of everything I needed to do. I needed to gather evidence, confront her again, and decide how I would move forward. No more excuses, no more lies. I started by looking through her phone. I knew it was crossing a line, but at that moment I didn't care. I needed proof of her betrayal. I had never snooped before. We always had a trusting relationship, or so I thought. But with her claims of me being the cause of her infidelity, I felt justified in my actions. I found her phone charging on the kitchen counter. My heart raced as I picked it up, glancing over my shoulder to ensure she was still asleep. The screen was locked, but I managed to remember her code from when she had let me use it in the past. It clicked open, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. I scrolled through her messages, heart pounding with every notification that popped up. There it was, the conversation with him. "I can't wait to see you again," one text read. "You make me feel alive," read another. I felt bile rise in my throat. The words were simple, but they cut me deeper than anything else. I had given her everything, and this was how she repaid me. I snapped screenshots of the messages, my hands shaking as I did. I knew I had to confront her with this evidence, to show her that I wouldn't be her scapegoat anymore. But I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. I was taking the power back. I was the one to blame here. She was the one who betrayed our vows, our trust. After gathering the evidence, I left the phone on the counter and retreated to the living room, my heart racing. I needed to think about how to confront her again. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, but I also felt a resolve forming, a sense of clarity. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. When Emily finally came out of the bedroom, it was around noon. She looked disheveled, her eyes puffy from crying. I could see the guilt on her face, but I wasn't interested in her remorse. I wanted the truth, not apologies. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Yeah, we can talk, but I'm not here to hear more lies," I replied, my tone icy. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she started, but I cut her off. "Save it, I know everything. I saw the messages," I said, pulling out my phone and showing her the screenshots. Her face turned pale, the color draining from her cheeks. "Jake, please let me explain," she pleaded, but I wasn't having it. "You don't get to explain your way out of this. You made a choice, Emily. You chose him over me," I said, feeling a strange mix of anger and sadness wash over me. She began to cry again, visibly shaken as she processed the evidence in front of her. "I was lonely. You were always at work and I felt ignored. You made me feel that way." The audacity of her words sent a wave of fury through me. "You think cheating is an acceptable way to handle your loneliness? This isn't about me, this is about your failure to communicate. You could have talked to me instead of betraying our marriage." Her sobs turned into wails, but I stood firm. I had to protect myself. I was hurt, yes, but I was also angry. I had devoted my life to her, and she had thrown it all away like it meant nothing. I felt the resolve solidifying within me, pushing away the pain for a moment. I wouldn't let her manipulate me into taking the blame for something I didn't do. As her tears streamed down her face, I realized this was my moment of clarity. I needed to decide what I wanted for my future. "I don't know what we can do from here, Emily," I said, my voice steadier now. "I need to think about what's best for me and the kids. This isn't just about us anymore." The anger, the sadness, and the betrayal all hit me at once, but I was determined to take control. I had been living in her shadow, and now it was time to put myself first. I spent the rest of that day in a daze, moving through the motions of daily life as if I were on autopilot. Emily was quieter now, her anger and excuses replaced by a mix of guilt and desperation. I could see the reality of her actions sinking in, but a part of me wondered if it was genuine regret or just a fear of losing everything. I took the kids to the park that afternoon, needing the fresh air and space to think. Watching them laugh and play, completely unaware of the storm brewing at home, was both comforting and painful. My son, Ethan, chased after Max, while my daughter, Lily, swung high into the air, her giggles echoing through the park. In that moment I felt a pang of determination. I wanted to shield them from any of the fallout from their mother's actions. When I returned home, I found Emily sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. I could tell she was waiting for me to say something, but I didn't want to jump right back into the fray. Instead, I took my time, packing around the living room as I gathered my thoughts. Eventually, I plopped down in the armchair opposite her. "We need to talk about what happens next," I finally said, my voice steady. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you," she started, her voice cracking. "Sorry doesn't cut it, Emily. You made a choice. You crossed a line that can't just be forgotten with an apology," I replied, keeping my tone calm but firm. "I need to know what you want. Do you want to fix this, or do you want to walk away?" Her gaze dropped to the floor, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. "I don't want to lose you, Jake. I love you, and I made a terrible mistake," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Love doesn't justify betrayal," I shot back, feeling the frustration boiling inside me. "Do you really think I can just forgive this? Do you even understand what this does to me?" She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. "I do. I know I messed up, but I was feeling so alone. I thought you didn't care anymore," she pleaded. "Then why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you communicate?" I asked, exasperated. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could find comfort elsewhere without hurting you," she confessed, her voice trembling. "Emily, that's not how relationships work," I said, my voice rising slightly. "Running to someone else instead of facing our issues head-on isn't the answer. You made a choice, and that choice hurt me, hurt our family." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. We were at a crossroads, and I knew this conversation was crucial. As much as I wanted to scream and lash out, I had to stay calm and collected. I was no longer going to let her dictate the terms of our relationship. "Right now, I don't know if I can stay in this marriage," I finally said, feeling a mix of sorrow and liberation wash over me. "I need time to think about what I want, about whether I can ever trust you again." The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. I could see the realization hitting Emily hard, and part of me felt a twinge of empathy, but I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. I had to prioritize my own well-being and, most importantly, that of our children. "Jake, please don't say that. I'll do anything to fix this," she begged, her voice breaking. I wasn't ready to make promises or commitments. "Right now I need space. I can't think straight with you hovering over me. I need to figure out what I truly want," I replied, my heart heavy with the burden of the moment. Emily nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'll give you space. Just know that I love you and I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she said, her voice thick with emotion. I stood up and walked toward the door, needing a breath of fresh air. The moment I stepped outside, I felt like I could finally breathe again. I was free from the weight of her emotional turmoil, at least for a moment. Walking around the block, I let my mind drift. I thought about what my life could look like without Emily. The thought scared me, but it also felt strangely invigorating. The idea of reclaiming my happiness felt powerful, and I began to envision a life where I didn't have to constantly worry about betrayal or heartbreak. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. I had 2 kids to think about, and I wanted to be the best father I could be. I didn't want their lives to be disrupted by the mess that Emily had created. I needed to find a way to navigate this situation carefully. When I returned home, Emily was still on the couch but had composed herself somewhat. "I respect your need for space. I'll be here when you're ready to talk," she said, her voice steadier now. I nodded, understanding that this was a pivotal moment for both of us. I couldn't promise her anything, but I was determined to find a way to heal, whether that meant working through our problems or parting ways. I could no longer be the victim of her choices. It was time for me to take control of my life and my happiness. As I made my way to the bedroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long journey towards healing, whatever that might look like. I had learned a valuable lesson. Accountability is essential, and I had to take responsibility for my own happiness moving forward. The days that followed were a blur. I established a routine. Mornings spent getting the kids ready for school, afternoons filled with work, and evenings filled with the silence of our home. Emily respected my space, which was both a relief and a source of tension. She would often hover in the background, waiting for a chance to talk, but I kept my distance, diving into my work and focusing on the kids. The emotional weight of the situation lingered like a dark cloud over me. I felt every bit of that betrayal, but I also felt a growing sense of empowerment. I started to realize that I had the right to prioritize my happiness, regardless of what Emily had done. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I decided to go for a long drive. The roads were empty, and the darkness offered me a comforting solitude to think. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting the hum of the engine drown out my thoughts, but eventually I found myself at a small diner on the outskirts of town. It had been ages since I had gone out for a late-night meal alone, and the familiarity of the greasy food and the sound of chatter brought me some comfort. As I sat there, nursing a cup of coffee and pondering my future, I noticed a group of men at the counter, chatting and laughing together. They looked carefree, with no burdens weighing them down. I realized how much I missed that sense of freedom, the ability to enjoy life without the constant worry of betrayal or loss. It made me reflect on what I wanted for myself and my children. I returned home that night feeling a little lighter, and I knew I had to start thinking about my next steps. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever, and the kids deserved to know what was going on, even if I didn't have all the answers yet. The following day, I sat down with Ethan and Lily after school. We usually spent time playing games or watching a movie, but today I needed to talk. I wanted to be honest without overwhelming them. "Hey kiddos, can we chat for a minute?" I asked, gesturing for them to sit with me on the couch. "Sure, Dad, what's up?" Ethan replied, curiosity etched on his face. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "You know how sometimes things change in life. Well, your mom and I are going through a tough time right now," I started, gauging their reactions. "Is it because Mom has been sad?" Lily piped up, her innocent question piercing straight through my heart. "Yeah, sweetie, it is. And it's important for us to be honest with each other," I continued. "Sometimes adults make mistakes and it can hurt the people we love." Ethan looked concerned. "Did she do something bad, Dad?" I hesitated, knowing their young minds might not fully grasp the situation. "Your mom made some choices that hurt our family, and it's something we have to work through together." Lily reached for my hand, her small fingers wrapping around mine. "Will you be okay, Dad?" she asked with wide eyes, the innocence of her tone striking me deep. "I'm going to be okay, but it's going to take time," I assured her. "What's most important right now is that we stick together as a family. I love you both very much and we'll get through this." With that, they both seemed to relax, and we spent the rest of the evening playing games, laughter filling the air as we tried to create a sense of normalcy in the chaos. I cherished those moments, knowing that despite everything, I had to protect their innocence and happiness. Later that night, I found Emily sitting in the dim light of the kitchen, flipping through the pages of an old photo album. I could tell she was emotional, and I felt a pang of sympathy. "Hey," I said softly, not wanting to start another argument. "How are you holding up?" She looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. "I've been thinking a lot about us, Jake. I miss the way things used to be." "That's the problem, Emily," I said, my patience wearing thin. "You made choices that changed everything. We can't just go back to how it was before. We need to address what happened." She nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "I know, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll go to counseling, I'll work on myself. Just please don't give up on us." I studied her face, searching for sincerity, but all I felt was an overwhelming sense of caution. "Emily, I don't want to give up, but I can't just pretend everything is fine. You have to understand the severity of what you did." "I do. I'm so sorry. I don't want to lose you," she pleaded, her voice breaking. I exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of our situation hang in the air like an unspoken agreement. "It's going to take time, Emily. We can't rush this. I need to see real change before I can even think about rebuilding trust." She nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I promise I'll do the work. I'll prove it to you." I wanted to believe her, but a part of me remained skeptical. Trust was a fragile thing, and she had shattered mine. I had to keep reminding myself that I was taking steps toward healing, that I was working on my own happiness. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between us began to ebb and flow like the tide. We navigated through awkward conversations and silent meals, both of us grappling with the reality of our situation. I started to attend a support group for those dealing with infidelity, and it helped me find a community of people who understood my pain. The more I talked about my feelings, the more I understood my own journey. I didn't want to be stuck in a cycle of blame or resentment. I wanted to move forward, whether that meant rebuilding my marriage or walking away from it altogether. In the midst of all this turmoil, I realized that I had to take charge of my own happiness. I couldn't let Emily's choices define my future. I began to focus on my well-being, picking up hobbies I had long abandoned and finding joy in small things. I started running, the rush of endorphins providing a much-needed release from the weight I had been carrying. Every time I laced up my sneakers and hit the pavement, I felt a surge of strength. I was reclaiming my life, one step at a time, and with each run, I began to breathe a little easier, allowing myself to imagine a future where I could be happy, regardless of whether that future included Emily. I was learning to prioritize myself in a way I had never done before, and it felt like a revelation. With every ounce of accountability I took for my own happiness, I became more resolute in my decision-making. I would face whatever came next with courage, ready to reclaim my life and my happiness. As the weeks passed, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. I was still navigating the murky waters of my marriage while trying to prioritize my own happiness. Emily and I had settled into a routine, one filled with awkward silences, hesitant conversations, and occasional moments of genuine connection. But despite her efforts, I still felt a wall between us, built from the scars of betrayal. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of juggling work and family, I sat down with a glass of whiskey, seeking a moment of solitude. Emily found me in the living room, her expression unreadable. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady. "Sure," I replied, bracing myself for what was to come. She took a deep breath and sat across from me. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I know I've hurt you in ways I can't even begin to express, and I don't expect your forgiveness, but I want to show you that I'm willing to change." I studied her closely, searching for sincerity in her eyes. "Change takes time, Emily. You can't expect me to just forget everything because you say you want to change. I understand that, but I've also been reflecting on my own actions and how I've contributed to our problems. I want us to go to couples therapy together," she suggested, her voice earnest. The idea caught me off guard. I had been so consumed with my own pain that I hadn't even thought about seeking professional help together. "You really think that could help?" I asked, still feeling hesitant. "I do. I want us to work through this," she replied, her eyes pleading. "I know it'll be a long journey, but I believe we can find a way back to each other if we have someone guiding us." I felt a mixture of hope and skepticism. Could therapy really help us bridge the gap, or was it just another empty promise? But a part of me wanted to believe in the possibility of healing. I nodded slowly. "All right, let's give it a shot." We scheduled our first appointment with a therapist who specialized in infidelity. Walking into her office felt surreal, like we were stepping into uncharted territory. The air buzzed with tension as we sat down, facing each other and the therapist. "Let's start with the foundation of your relationship," the therapist said, her voice calming. "What brought you together, and what do you believe makes your bond strong?" As we began to discuss our history, I felt a flicker of something within me. Memories of our early days together, the laughter, the shared dreams, the love we had, began flooding back. It was a bittersweet reminder of what we had lost, but it also ignited a small spark of hope. Over the course of several sessions, we began to peel back the layers of our relationship. The therapist helped us confront our underlying issues: communication, intimacy, and the way we had both neglected our needs. Emily expressed her feelings of loneliness, while I shared my frustrations over feeling unappreciated. At first, it was painful. Old wounds were reopened as we navigated through the raw emotions, but I also felt a sense of relief. There was something cathartic about putting everything out on the table. With every session, I began to understand not just Emily's perspective, but also my own. I appreciated her efforts to change, but I also realized that some of my anger remained. I was still grappling with the betrayal and the emotional roller coaster that had become my life. I found myself torn between wanting to forgive her and needing to protect myself. One evening, after a particularly enlightening therapy session, I came home and decided to reach out to some friends for support. I hadn't spent much time with them since everything had happened, and I realized I needed to reconnect with my own life outside of my marriage. I texted a group of friends and invited them over for a casual get-together. When they arrived, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Laughter filled the air as we reminisced about old times, shared stories, and enjoyed a few beers. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of normalcy. During the evening, one of my friends, Mark, pulled me aside. "Hey man, how are you really doing? You've been through a lot," he said, concern etched on his face. "Honestly, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm trying to figure out if I can forgive Emily and if we can rebuild our relationship, but it's tough," I admitted, the vulnerability surprising me. Mark nodded, understanding. "Just remember, you need to prioritize yourself too. It's okay to focus on your happiness and not just the relationship." Those words echoed in my mind long after the gathering had ended. I needed to be honest with myself about what I wanted. I had spent so long trying to be supportive of Emily that I had neglected my own needs. As the days passed, I began to realize that my happiness shouldn't solely depend on her actions. I started to reclaim aspects of my life, spending time with the kids, going for runs, and even pursuing my hobbies again. I found joy in the small moments and began to rebuild my sense of self. But I also knew that this journey wasn't just about me, it was about our family. I wanted the kids to see their parents as whole individuals, not just two people trying to navigate a broken relationship. I wanted them to feel secure, regardless of the outcome. One night, after tucking the kids into bed, I sat down with Emily. We had both been working hard in therapy, and I could sense a shift in our dynamic. "I think we're making progress," I said, cautiously optimistic. She smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I feel it too. I just want to keep moving forward, whatever that looks like." I took a deep breath, knowing that while I wanted to believe in our potential to heal, I also had to be realistic. "It's going to take time, and I still have a lot of feelings to process," I stated. "But I want to try. I want to give us a chance." As we continued to work together in therapy, the road ahead became clearer. I knew there would be challenges, but for the first time in a long time I could see a glimmer of hope in the distance. I was learning to balance my own happiness with the complexities of our relationship, and that felt empowering. I was taking ownership of my happiness, and as I moved forward, I felt a sense of strength I hadn't experienced in a long time. I wasn't just surviving, I was beginning to thrive, no matter what the future held for Emily and me. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself more at ease with the decisions I was making. Emily and I continued our therapy sessions, slowly peeling back the layers of our relationship and addressing the root causes of our issues. Each session brought its own set of challenges, but it also presented opportunities for growth. There were moments of clarity and moments of tension, but throughout it all, I felt a sense of empowerment that I hadn't experienced before. One evening, after another productive session, we sat down in the kitchen with a bottle of wine. The atmosphere was lighter than it had been in ages. "I know it's been hard, but I can see the progress we're making," Emily said, her gaze hopeful. I nodded, feeling a mixture of gratitude and caution. "We've both been working hard, and I appreciate that, but I also know there's still a long way to go." "Let's keep taking it one step at a time," she replied, her eyes earnest. "I'm committed to doing whatever it takes. I just want our family to be whole." Her sincerity struck a chord with me, and I felt a wave of compassion wash over me. I remembered the love we once shared, and I wanted to believe that it was still there beneath the surface, waiting to be revived. "I want that too," I said quietly. "But we have to keep communicating, and I need you to understand that trust is built over time." "I know," she responded, her voice steady. "I'm ready to put in the work, Jake." As time passed, we began to rebuild our foundation brick by brick. Emily took proactive steps in her personal growth, attending workshops and seeking friendships that encouraged her to explore her own interests outside of our relationship. She became more independent, and I could see the positive changes manifesting in her demeanor. Meanwhile, I continued my own journey of self-discovery. I began to reconnect with old friends and explore new hobbies. I joined a local running club, and the camaraderie I found there provided me with an incredible source of support. I spent more time with Ethan and Lily, taking them on adventures to the park, teaching them how to ride bikes, and making memories that I cherish deeply. In the process, I learned to prioritize my own happiness, not just in relation to my marriage but in every aspect of my life. I found joy in little things, like cooking dinner together with the kids or watching movies on the couch with popcorn. I was reclaiming the pieces of myself that I had lost along the way. As we drew closer to the end of the therapy sessions, the therapist encouraged us to reflect on the progress we had made. One evening, we sat down together in her office, and she asked us to express what we had learned about ourselves and each other. "I've learned that I can't take responsibility for someone else's actions," I said, feeling the weight of those words. "I can support Emily, but I also need to take care of myself. I've learned to stand up for my own happiness." Emily nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. "And I've learned that communication is crucial. I can't run away from my feelings or expect you to read my mind. I have to express my needs and be honest about my struggles." The therapist smiled, sensing the growth in both of us. "You've made significant strides, and it's clear that you both care deeply for each other. Moving forward, remember that relationships require ongoing effort and commitment." The sessions came to an end, but I felt more equipped to navigate the road ahead. As we left her office, I turned to Emily. "We've come so far," I said, a sense of pride swelling within me. "But we still have work to do. How do you feel about setting some goals for our relationship?" "Absolutely," she replied, her eyes shining with determination. "Let's focus on open communication and schedule regular check-ins. We need to keep talking about our feelings and not let things fester." We began to establish routines, including weekly date nights where we could reconnect without the distractions of daily life. It was refreshing to experience that spark again, even if it took time to fully restore. We laughed, we shared stories, and we rediscovered the connection that initially brought us together. One sunny Saturday, I took the kids to a nearby park for a picnic. Emily joined us, and we laid out a blanket under a large oak tree. As we ate and played games, I felt a sense of normalcy returning to our family dynamic. We were laughing, and for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely happy. As the afternoon turned into evening and the sun began to set, I looked around at my family. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey we had been on. It hadn't been easy, but we had faced the storm and come out the other side, stronger together. Later that night, as I lay in bed next to Emily, I turned to her. "I want you to know how much I appreciate the effort you've put into this. I see the changes and it gives me hope." She smiled, softly, her hand reaching for mine. "Thank you for giving me a chance, Jake. I'm committed to being the partner you deserve." In that moment, I realized that our journey wasn't just about overcoming betrayal. It was about rebuilding our lives, embracing accountability, and learning to love each other in healthier ways. I understood that the road ahead might still hold challenges, but I felt empowered to face them. I had taken responsibility for my happiness and found strength in my vulnerability. Life was unpredictable, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. We were no longer just surviving. Together, we were thriving.